For those of you who know her, she's known for her independence, and she said during the press conference that she will be given the tools she needs by the governor, including independence. I want to say that I think this notion of independence is closely tied to leadership, and that there were leadership issues at the Air Resources Board, and we all were affected by that. And so what was happening was this cycle of mixed messages coming from the Air Resources Board, not just from the governor's office, but from the Air Resources Board.
So you're acknowledging mixed messages from the governor's office?
I think there was confusion on both sides, and part of that was a lack of leadership at the Air Resources Board and a need for stronger leadership. And Mary Nichols is very strong, is very independent.
Yeah, I don't think I can let that go without asking Ms. Witherspoon and Dr. Sawyer to respond, because I believe that what you clearly said earlier is that you were providing leadership and you felt like somebody got in the way of your ability to do that, and I want you to speak to that, because I don't think such a strong charge could be made without you getting a clear chance to respond.
Well, that is a pretty strong charge, which clearly it seems to me that I was being too independent and not carrying out the wishes of the governor's staff. And that's why I was fired, although a lot of other issues were raised after the fact. I think it really comes down to the desire of the Chief of Staff to control the Air Resources Board, especially for the implementation of AB 32. And the independence of Catherine Witherspoon and my reluctance or refusal to fire her is really why I got fired. Now, I was quite willing to accept that. In fact, the Chief of Staff told me that the governor wanted me to retire. And those of you who know my history probably know that I've retired several times, and I laughed and said, well, I'm clearly not the retiring type. And that's when I was told that my appointment had been rescinded, and I said thank you and took the letter. I was later contacted by the cabinet secretary asking me if I wouldn't like to reconsider and resign, and they would shred the letter which they had issued, presumably taking it out of the public press. And I said, oh no, I'm quite happy to be fired. I've never had that happen before, and I thought it was a better way to go. And I'm certainly pleased to learn, which I didn't know, is that my predecessor, Professor Hoggensmith, was also fired by a Republican governor, so I'm in wonderful company.
Ms. Witherspoon?
Well, I think leadership is defined by the willingness of others to follow you without coercion, and you could talk to just about any member of the Air Resources Board staff, and they would tell you that I'm an effective leader. With respect to confusion on early action measures, I will admit to employing stratagems. The Air Resources Board was allowed to put a staff report out proposing 3 early action measures for our board hearing, and when Dr. Sawyer indicated he wanted more and staff analyzed them for him and said yes, we could do more, we decided not to amend the staff report because we would have to go back to the governor's office and they would tell us no. So we let the staff report stand, and we strategized that Dr. Sawyer would propose them at the board meeting and the staff would say yes. Which sort of the ploys we had to resort to because we weren't allowed to represent directly what the staff was capable of or what we thought should be done.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Laird. I have Ms. Brownlee, Ms. Saldana, Mr. Nava, and Mr. Keeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. A lot of my questions have been already asked. I'm new to this process, but one thing that I'm very, very clear on is that the purpose and very strong commitment around AB 32 was not to have any predetermined outcomes, and one of the reasons why the Air Resource Board was selected as the body to oversee and move AB 32 forward looking ahead in terms of what we can do to ensure the Air Resources Board's independence. There's been a couple of things that's been talked about. One is the terms of board members. This side of the table has said that would provide more independence. This side of the table is concerned that perhaps terms for board members might reduce what you perceive to be the excellence of the Air Resources Board, and I'd like to hear what you mean by that. The speaker made a recommendation with regards to communications being sunshine, so that any communications with the Air Resources Board and the executive branch it was in the public domain, and I think we've touched on that. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And then last is the early actions. I mean, I think that many of us sitting here were very disappointed that there were only 3 early actions, and there have been, in information that's been given to me, there's clearly, I think there were other actions like the cool paints and the medium duty trucks there was discussions about them being on there. I guess wanting to hear, particularly maybe from Dr. Sawyer, if there are any recommendations about reopening the debate around early actions, and if you think that that's a good idea in terms of moving forward. So those would be my questions.
Well, at the board meeting, the staff was instructed to look at their list, the second group of items, to see which ones could be moved up and acted upon more rapidly. Out of fairness to the workload on the staff, which is overwhelming at the present time, because they've really taken on AB 32 with a minimal buildup in staff at the present time while we are engaging, they are engaging in major air quality rulemaking processes at the present time.